I got my Nintendo 3DS XL in 2012, and I've enjoyed the heck out of it since then. But over the last year or so, this handheld has started to show its age and perhaps lack of long-term durability, despite good care on my part. I feared the death knell for this little thing was when its analog stick randomly broke off and needed to be glued back on. I mostly blame Super Smash Bros. The 3DS's analog stick is in many cases not capable of withstanding 20 plus hours of that game. It's back on, but it still feels a little untrustworthy. Additionally, my XY and AB face buttons have become quite sticky. They still work fine enough, I suppose, but they're not as responsive and comfortable to use as they once were. And to begin with, the 3DS XL isn't the most premium feeling handheld console that Nintendo has ever released. I do enjoy its screen size, but this thing has always felt somewhat cheap and plasticky to me. I had been thinking for some time that it might not be a bad idea to replace my 3DS XL, so when Nintendo announced in September 2020 that the 3DS family of consoles was finally being formally discontinued, I didn't want to hesitate any longer. This console family, dating back to its original iteration in 2011, has an excellent library of games. Games that I know I'll want to revisit in the future, as well as a handful of games that are still in my backlog yet to be played at all. You know, these aging games and consoles are in finite supply and, for the most part, only increasing in demand and value. And who knows when or if these games will ever be re-released. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Metroid Samus Returns, Super Mario 3D Land, great handheld ports of Yoshi's Woolly World and Donkey Kong Country Returns. This is a really stellar game library that I'm going to want indefinite access to. Now, in years past, I've replaced a few home consoles. My replacement Wii was used, but it was in very good shape and worked perfectly fine, so I didn't mind that it carried a used label. However, used handhelds have always turned me off. Maybe it's the intimate nature of a handheld, of wanting that up-close experience all to myself with no prior wear and tear. But major retailers are all mostly, if not entirely, sold out of 3DS family systems. And as soon as I checked Amazon and eBay, I quickly saw that brand new, still sealed new 3DS and 2DS XL consoles, for example, were going for almost $200 or even more, even closer to $300 or $400 in some cases. So after a little poking around on Nintendo's website, I saw they were selling refurbished 2DS XLs in the black and blue colorway for $99, which is $50 less than the console's original retail price. Refurbished is another label that I typically steer clear of, but it struck me that this was likely a very limited opportunity to purchase a certifiably good 2DS XL console from Nintendo itself. So I did it. I went out on a limb, I made the purchase, and hoped that Nintendo sent me something that was worth $99, or to be exact, $113 with taxes and fees. As of early November 2020, you can still buy these from Nintendo.com. There's a link in the description of this video if you're interested. I can't say how much longer they'll last though. Maybe another year, maybe another week. It's hard to say. So what you saw at the beginning of this video is exactly what I received in the mail. What can I say about this refurbished 2DS XL? Well, its condition is perfect. And had its refurbished state not been advertised to me, I likely would have thought this was a brand new, never used 2DS XL. There's no way of knowing why this console was refurbished, but if it did have any damage or defective parts, I would never know. Again, everything here, the buttons, the screen, it's all in seemingly perfect factory-like condition. Speaking of the screen, well, it's noticeably brighter than my 3DS XL's. Now, it's certainly not as bright and attractive as the Switch's screen in handheld mode, but that's to be expected given the huge differences in hardware. But I like the picture here. If you're thinking about warmth in an image, my 3DS XL looks much warmer, has that kind of amber tint, whereas the 2DS XL looks much cooler, maybe even cleaner and sharper as a result. The screen also looks like a smartphone, as has been said many times before, so you're either going to like that or not like that. I do honestly prefer the chunkier plastic bordered 3DS XL top screen, but I do think the 2DS XL is a bit sleeker. I couldn't find 2DS XL display dimensions anywhere online before making this purchase. Now, I'm not talking about the total size of the top screen, but just the display window itself. So I measured and, well, it's 4.25 inches wide by 2.6 inches tall, whereas the 3DS XL is 4.5 inches wide by 2.75 inches tall. So yes, the 2DS XL has the slightly smaller display window, but we are talking about a console whose resolution is 400 by 240, so given the pixel density, you might feel that the 2DS XL is actually a little easier on the eyes. Absolutely, hands down, the speakers sound better on the 2DS XL versus my old 3DS XL. Now, they're not going to blow you away, but there's definitely more treble, more bass, and a lot more volume. There's just more body to the sound coming out of these speakers. The downside is their location on the bottom half of the console. Your hands may very likely muffle a game's music and sound effects, which is a shame and odd from a design perspective, and it feels a little weird to have audio originating from the panel opposite the main display window, where your eyes are primarily glued and where most of the game's action is playing out. The smaller size of the 2DS XL Stylus has been well documented, but it is 2.5 inches long, whereas the 3DS XL Stylus is 3.75 inches long. It is a significant difference. The 2DS XL Stylus is just not going to be as comfortable to hold in most adult hands. I could see me using an old stylus with the 2DS XL or buying a new specialty stylus just for this console. It's also worth mentioning that the 2DS XL Stylus does not go in or come out of its little storage chamber as quickly as I would like. The design only allows the stylus to lock into place when it's entered at a specific angle, and I just find that to be annoying. It can negatively impact your immersion while playing a game, especially an action game that has you jumping between the primary buttons and the stylus and touchscreen. The stylus is overall my biggest gripe with this console, even more than the speakers, because while the placement of the speakers is awkward, they at least sound better than the 3DS XL speakers I'm used to, whereas the stylus situation feels like a measurable downgrade in every way. The face buttons feel great, a huge improvement over the 3DS XL, even when mine was brand new. The 2DS XL buttons pop a little more, they're clickier, slightly textured. The D-pad feels nicer on my fingertips too, and I also like the feel of the new trigger buttons. Additionally, the weight of this console. The 2DS XL coming in at about 9 ounces is noticeably lighter than the 3DS XL coming in at about 12 ounces. I've seen people complain about the weight and that it's just so light that they feel like it's going to fly out of their hands or not hold up or something, but I don't share those feelings. In my mind, the lighter a handheld is, the more comfortable it's going to be to play for extended periods of time, so I like the lighter weight a lot. Lastly, the obvious point, there's no 3D functionality here. That's the whole point of the 2DS. They cut costs by removing the 3D tech, so if you love playing games in 3D, you'll be disappointed. But if you're like me and the 3D gives you a headache and has always mostly felt like a gimmick, you won't mind at all. It's no big deal, really. And that's about all I can say. I don't like the stylus situation, but otherwise this is a nice little handheld. I feel relieved that when or if my 3DS XL should finally bite the dust, I do have this great mint condition replacement on standby.